God's special people. We'll do now the fourth section, which is the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. And we've chosen for this last one the magnificent Salvador Dali crucifixion scene. And you'll see this at St. Mungo's Museum, St. Mungo's Museum of Religious Life and Art in Glasgow. And it's brilliant. It's another way of picturing Jesus from above, looking down upon him and upon the world. Historically, do we know where Jesus was crucified and then buried? Well, we do know that the Jews did venerate tombs of martyrs and prophets. And Jesus was clearly that. We do know that that James, the so-called brother of the Lord, led the Jerusalem church for at least 30 years after Jesus' death. So it's safe to assume that they kept alive the memory of where Jesus was buried. Now, the early 4th century church under Emperor Constantine built a huge complex over that place. There was the church of the martyr, the martyrion. There was a garden with the resurrection pavilion in it, and there was a freestanding Calvary. Excavations since 1945 revealed the site as outside the city walls at that time, in a quarry. It had been a quarry since the 6th or 7th century BC, but in the 1st century BC it was filled in and was a garden to serve as a burial place. Interestingly, exactly as St. John paints it in the Passion narrative. Now, just some key points to finish. Jesus carries his own cross in St. John. There's no Simon of Cyrene, because he's in total control. He's sovereign. It was probably just the crossbeam, because at the place of Calvary there was the vertical stake was always there, and people to be crucified carried generally their own crossbeam. John develops 2 episodes that are in the other synoptic gospels when Jesus is crucified. The one concerning the soldiers dealing with Jesus' clothes. We're not 100% sure of what that all means, but the second is interesting. The inscription that Pilate places above where Jesus is crucified on the cross. Interestingly, we see once again the Jews and Pilate arguing about what's going to be written up there. But this time it's Pilate who seems to reassert his authority and proclaims as true the charge that they had made. And the formulation, Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews, is solemn, almost regal. And we still use it with INRI, the initials of Jesus Nazarenos Rex Judaeorum, Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews. And of course, being in 3 languages, the solemnity is even stronger. John chapter 19, verses 25 to 27, that extraordinary scene we have only in John of the beloved disciple and the mother of Jesus with 3 other women at the foot of the cross. How do we think of this scene? Well, we think of Cana, where Mary is again the mother of Jesus and woman. It's very symbolic. At Cana, Mary symbolized Lady Zion, all of God's people, calling out in their need. And now at the cross, Lady Zion is giving birth to a new people of God in these times of the Messiah through the gift of the Spirit. We come as beloved disciples to the church, Mary our mother. Interestingly, sometime around the year 1000, the West starts to lose a sense of Mary as symbol and treat her as a person. And so we start to look at Mary as our spiritual mother. But originally, of course, it was much more in the realm of symbol. We can see, though, that there are people all through our tradition who have a more simple, literary sort of view of this as the dying Jesus entrusting his mother to his dearest friend and his closest disciple. Michael Fallon speaks slightly differently. He says that Mary represents faithful Israel, and the beloved disciple is the key witness to Jesus. All faithful believers are entrusted to the care of the beloved disciple, who will show us who Jesus truly is and will lead us into his sacred heart. And the beloved disciple is entrusted to the faithful Israel, because ultimately the young Christian community is a child of Israel. And Israel is still the mother of the Christian community. It is finished, says Jesus. He's completed his work, and now death is his deliberate choice. And bowing his head, he gives up the spirit. Could it be, as Raymond Brown says, that Jesus is bending down towards those at the foot of his cross and giving them the Holy Spirit? One of the soldiers pierced his side with a lance, and immediately there came out blood and water. The Vulgate, the old Latin version of the scriptures that were in vogue in the church until last century, translates pierced with the word opened. And that gave to the church the idea that Christ's side is opened, and from his open side flow fountains of sacramental life into the church, in particular baptism water and Eucharist blood. And if we do remember where in John chapter 7 Jesus cries out, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink," there is added the quotation, "For from within him shall flow rivers of living water." Or perhaps, or certainly, it's the gift of the Spirit. And possibly, it's the gift of the life-giving sacraments. Now that he has been lifted up in death, Jesus is drawing all people to himself, and he'll pour out on those who believe his Holy Spirit and life. This is the evidence of one who saw it, trustworthy evidence. The beloved disciple is speaking to us. And just as John the Baptist saw and bore witness that Jesus truly is the Son of God at the beginning of the Gospel, so now at the end of the Gospel and at the end of Jesus' life, by way of inclusion, the beloved disciple has seen and borne witness to this same truth all through his life. The beloved disciple can see so clearly that Jesus' death on a cross is his glorification and is his sending of the Spirit to us. It is so life-giving. And then Jesus is buried. And John's account is more elaborate about his burial than the synoptics, suggesting that somebody of noble birth is being buried, and is buried in a garden where ancient kings were buried. So we began these two chapters in a garden too, with Jesus' arrest. We saw the interrogation before Annas while Pilate was denying Jesus. Well, rather Peter was denying Jesus. We watched the trial before Pilate and saw Jesus the truth and Jesus the King, so majestic. And then we contemplated some of the events that happened as he's dying on a cross. And then again, now we finish with his burial in a garden. Thank you.